Hey there. Say, am going to come back to these circular paintings. My name's Neil Johnston, and I am posting some videos about some of my artistic process. And right now, I'm working on circular paintings, and these are an investigation into this concept of portals, or that somehow an image, like a painting, uh, can um, can sort of be a window as well as a surface. Of course, this is a definition about picture plane that a lot of people accept. And I like the idea that whatever I put into this painting sort of somehow gets transmitted later to the viewer. And whether or not they want to stay engaged is totally up to them. But I'm presenting in my paintings an experience for somebody, and that's kind of how I think about these things. And because this is an explanation, or an exploration, I am not starting with a lot of preconceived imagery. I am just starting with what I think and feel about the idea of passageways, portals, looking between and through things, and then maybe having this idea that things might be looking back. Portals being round, this may be too obvious. I've yet to figure that out. But I'm imagining these paintings being arranged in a gallery, much like windows for sure, and that as you move through, there's a certain rhythm and intensity that might draw you to them, and maybe make connections between them. So that's where I am right now. Let's get to painting. So I'm going to begin. I just can't stop actually. I've done a couple layers on here. I have some ink, and I have a couple layers of ink and one layer of this sort of a Titan buff color that was starting to block in some areas. And I think in reaction to this, I'm going to paint some large fields of color. And I'm going to start with some cool colors. I have 10 of these circular panels. And I think I'm just going to begin. I also am noticing that the layers before this are matte. They're all sort of a matte finish. And so in my exploration, almost always, I bounce between contrasts. So we had linear elements, gestural elements, to some more constructed shapes, transparency and opacity. And I'm also thinking like organic and inorganic and geometric versus, I don't know, non geometric. And we have warm and cool colors and fields of color versus like shapes in specific regions. So I think it's about time to do gloss and, not gloss, I suppose. So I think I'm going to divide this up into some large regions. I'm going to be using Thalol blue and the green shade. I'm also using manganese blue hue for some of my cools. Then to warm that up a little bit, I've got warm gold, green gold, and I've got chromium oxide green. And then, of course, my ever-present Van Dyke Brown. I really love that to sort of neutralize some things. And and then some clear gel, glossy. So I'm going to begin. I'm going to hit this with some gloss right now. I'm using just a standard large brush. I often work with house painting brushes, and kind of whatever gets the job done. I think it's nice. So I'm hitting this with a gloss. I'm gonna see what happens here. I'm gonna work into this a little bit slower and kind of start to block in some larger areas with this blue. And I don't know. We'll just kind of watch and see what happens. That's kind of what I'm doing for this particular series. Oh yeah, that's pretty sweet. Dig that. Here is some blue to kind of balance it out on the other side here. You can see that this is causing areas to move back and some to come forward. And so I like watching for those things to happen. The kind of push and pull of space in the work. And right now I'm sort of figuring out a type of maybe a type of balance, I suppose. I'm going to hit a little bit more gel into here, this clear gloss. And I know I typically do lots and lots and lots of layers, and so right now I know that this is just the very beginning of this stage. Wow, this green is intense. Look at that. That just nailed it. Wow. So I'm just going to kind of get a little bit of green back here to balance that out, and then we'll see, what happens in here. This isn't bad, I think, for right now. Pretty cool. I'm going to darken up some areas a little bit with this Van Dyke Brown. I think that this green is just a little too intense through here. I kind of feel like it needs to kind of do that. And now I'm sort of reacting with my gestures with this larger brush to what's going on in here. I think I'm going to work through this series bouncing between warm and cool colors. And right now that's looking pretty sweet to my eye. I think that's really nice. So I'm going to move on to another one. Here's another one. I think on this one I'm going to begin again with I'm going to get just a little wet here with the gloss gel. I've got a little bit of green still on my brush. I think that's just fine. I'm thinking I'm going to let the one I just did tack up a little bit and then come back and do a removal before it gets too, you'll see what I mean, until it gets too, before it gets too set up. Wow. This subtleness in this, starting with this green, is really nice. I think maybe the other one was a little bit too color forward or something. What would you call that? Too much, too great, too I don't know. I'm not gonna judge right now. I'm really enjoying this color against the blue, and this one I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of the phthalo blue, which is a much richer and more transparent blue. I think in kind of the palette I'm looking at for this series of works is going to sort of move through some complements, and I think that they are going to hopefully represent different places or different, they maybe these portals are portals to some psychological spaces or emotional spaces. I'm not quite sure. I'm thinking of some imagery that might be coming through in future layers, but right now I'm just trying to kind of react to this. I'm gonna sort of hit this with some darks along the edge here. I liked in the last one how they pushed some spaces back, and now I am gonna just kind of run with that here and see if I can make some areas yeah, kind of really push back. I think that's looking really nice. I'm developing kind of an atmosphere right now. Let me pull this one off, put the other one back on. I'll show you that removal technique. All right, here's the first one I was working on. It had a few minutes here to tack up, and again, I have these on a kind of a lazy Susan setup here on my drawing table, and that way I'm not really settling on an orientation quite yet, and so I can spin them around. I have a spray bottle with some water, and if you spray on with a spray bottle really really quickly, you get quite a mist. But if you go slowly, you get these really interesting droplets. And I think I'm going to get some droplets in here, and I'll show you. So I knew I was going to be getting into some layers, so I started light. I'm getting some density now, so I'm just going to kind of hit this. I'm just barely squeezing the trigger here of my, and this table is a little bit of an angle, so they may drip, I suppose. That's all right. So what I'm doing is just getting a pattern of droplets across the front. And I this is something that appears in my work quite a bit. I like sort of the idea that there's an organic process in here I'm not quite in control of, and it's going to sort of remove some parts. And I have, or not remove some parts, the organic chaos sort of balances some of the analytical sort of stuff that I kind of go through in my mind for me. This is just a dry brush, and I'm going to grab a paper towel over here. And now it's sat for a little bit. I can see it's starting to pull up. You might not be able to see that, but hopefully I'm just going to now carefully remove the paint that was loosened by the mist. And this also gives me an opportunity to create some directional movements, because the way that I swipe my brush can pull these bubbles, they kind of do look like bubbles, to in a certain direction. So they kind of become little gestural things. So it's subtle, but they will show up later in the painting. And I just really like the idea that what was before a really straightforward application of a glaze now is kind of incorporated with the colors that came before. And there's a real sort of organic quality about this now. Oops, I see what I missed. You can kind of lean down on the side and see, I like to watch for the bubbles that are still there. And I'm just barely letting this touch the surface, and I'm wicking off the bubbles, and they're pulling up the pigment. And it gives this really nice textural effect. It actually sort of lightens up some of the dark areas. I hope that you can see that. And it really tends to integrate the two layers, the layer beneath and the new layer. And you can see in the sheen there kind of how these, wow, I really just love that effect. So I'm going to do that on the other one, and then we'll be right back. Well, here's the other one, and I let it dry for a few minutes till it's just a little tacky on the surface, and then I applied this mist, and I have my dry brush here and my paper towel. I'm just going to come in now, and it's kind of like adding a scumble, but it's not. You're just sort of lightly, with the kind of the side of the brush, not the top of the brush, I am pulling off some of that paint. And this addition and subtraction process really actually is like, for me, it's an editing process in a way, but it's editing using this really organic technique, I suppose. I'm not sure exactly what the dot pattern is going to look like. I just know that it adds a real, it adds a nice foil to anything I was previously working on. And so this going back and forth in the way I apply the paint in the colors that I choose in a contrasting way is kind of how I begin to build up some painting, especially if I am questing kind of for subject matter. In this case, this idea of portals. So here's another one. Let me lift this one up here for you if I can. And you can see it's kind of celestial in this one, I think. But you can kind of see the way that the paint has been removed. So this one is actually kind of a blue-green color, and I think the next pair will probably be warmer. I'll probably do these complements, so maybe some oranges, reds, yellow oranges, and then I might get into some violets and kind of make my way around the color wheel with these 10 portals and then see what they suggest. So this is the next step in the portals process, is to hit these with these fields of color that modulate between a couple different hues that are analogous and then some dark areas. I hope you found that interesting.